Imagine jumping into a car, right? Like you leave your seatbelt unbuckled, ignore the broken speedometer on the dashboard, and just blast blindfolded onto a foggy, crowded highway.
At like 100 miles an hour,
Hmm.
which is just, terrifying.
Terrifying, right? It sounds like absolute madness, yet
Right.
every single year people try to do that exact same thing in airplanes.
Yeah, and unfortunately for them, gravity doesn't really offer any second chances.
Right.
The sky is incredibly unforgiving to people who think the rules just don't apply to them.
Exactly. So welcome to Career Day at the hangar, everyone. Look around you right now. You smell that.
Oh, that is the best smell.
That sharp mix of jet fuel, a little engine oil, and just sheer possibility. There is literally nothing like it. And you're looking at these incredible machines, right? These absolute marvels of engineering. And I know exactly what you're thinking.
You're sitting in that folding chair, looking at the cockpit, thinking, I want to do that.
Right. You're like, I want to fly.
Hmm.
But then someone hands you a stack of FAA rule books that weighs, well, more than a landing gear tire.
Yeah, and suddenly the dream just feels like this massive pile of boring homework. It's the quickest way to kill the romance of aviation for a teenager, honestly.
Oh, 100%. You walk in wanting to feel the G-forces and touch the clouds, and instead you get handed 1,000 pages of dense government legalese.
It's a giant list of all the things you aren't allowed to do.
But we are here today to completely flip that perspective, because those boring rule books, they are written in blood. They're the collected wisdom of a century of trial and error.
Right. And our mission in this deep dive is to take that sleep-inducing text, specifically Part 61 and Part 91 of the Federal Aviation Regulations, and translate them into street smarts.
Or, more accurately, sky laws. Because once you understand the actual mechanics behind the rules, they stop looking like chains holding you down.
Exactly. They start looking like the very framework that actually keeps you alive. So we're going to break down how you earn the right to sit in that pilot seat, and then, how you actually survive once your wheels leave the pavement.
Okay, so let's start with getting in the seat. Part 61. The official title is something like Certification for Pilots and Instructors. But I know a lot of you in the audience are gamers, right?
Yeah. Think of Part 61 as the ultimate video game level-up system. It's basically the driver's ed of aviation.
Right. Before you can play the main campaign, you have to earn your XP.
And in the aviation world, your experience points are your flight hours. You literally cannot advance to the next tier without grinding out those hours in the sky.
So no cheat codes, basically.
No cheat codes. Like to get your private pilot certificate, which is your basic entry-level license to fly yourself and your friends around, you need a minimum of 40 hours of flight time.
And that's not just like sitting there watching the clouds go by.
Oh no, that's 40 hours of mastering stalls, doing steep turns, practicing emergency procedures. You have to prove you can land the plane entirely by yourself without bending the metal.
Right, so once you hit 40 hours and pass your final check ride, the tutorial is basically complete. You've unlocked the map.
You have. But if you want to actually get paid to fly, like if you want to turn this into a profession, you have to level up to a commercial pilot certificate.
And that requires, what, a minimum of 250 hours?
Yep, 250 hours. And that jump from private to commercial isn't just about putting in the time. The tolerance for error shrinks dramatically.
Because the FAA expects you to master a complex aircraft, right?
Exactly. You need to understand advanced aerodynamics, execute maneuvers with pinpoint precision. I mean, you're preparing to take responsibility for paying customers.
Which brings us to the absolute pinnacle of the mountain.
Right.
Like, to sit where I sit, flying the big heavy metal jets for the airlines, you need your airline transport pilot certificate.
ATTP.
Right, the ATP. And the XP required for that is just massive.
Oh, it's huge. You need 1,500 hours of flight time. Plus, you have to be at least 23 years old to hold the unrestricted ATP.
That is a staggering jump from 250 hours. Like, why does the FAA demand so much time before they let you fly a jet?
Well, think about it. Flying a 150-passenger airliner at 600 miles an hour requires this intuition that, honestly, only comes from deep, varied experience.
Right. They want you to have seen terrible weather, handled mechanical gremlins.
Yeah, and made high-stakes decisions long before you ever take responsibility for a cabin full of people.
That makes total sense. And just like in a game, you actually get to choose which server you want to play on to grind all this XP.
Right, the servers. You'll hear pilots talk about Part 61 schools versus Part 141 schools.
Yeah, and the source material outlines this beautifully. Like, Part 61 flight training is your flexible, open-world server. You train at your own pace.
Whenever you and your instructor want, it's perfect if you're, say, flying as a hobby or trying to balance it with high school or a full-time job.
But then on the other side, you have the Part 141 server, which is the highly structured, syllabus-driven environment.
Right. It's designed for speed running a professional career. Aviation training programs at large universities or academies, they operate under Part 141.
And the FAA watches those like a hawk, right?
Oh, intense scrutiny. They check every single lesson plan. But because of that rigid structure, students can sometimes use things like the GI Bill to pay for it, and occasionally they can even earn their certificates with slightly fewer total flight hours.
Oh, wow. Okay, so you're grinding hours, leveling up your base certificates, but you also get to unlock new abilities, which we call ratings.
Right, the skins and power-ups,
Yep.
like the instrument rating, which gives you the superpower to fly straight through the clouds.
Navigating entirely by the screens on your dashboard when you literally can't see the ground. It's wild. Or the multi-engine rating, which lets you fly planes with more than one engine.
And getting those certificates is a huge accomplishment, but, the FAA is very clear that earning them is only half the battle. You actually have to maintain them.
Wait, hold on. If I play a game and hit level 100, I am level 100 forever. Like, I can put the controller down for 3 years, log back in, and my character is still totally maxed out.
Not in aviation.
So are you saying if I stop flying for a few years, my pilot stats just decay? Does the FAA revoke my license?
Well, they don't revoke your certificate. It is yours for life. But your privileges to actually use that certificate, those decay.
Okay.
In aviation, we call this currency. The FAA knows that flying relies heavily on muscle memory and procedural recall, right?
Yeah.
And both of those fade really quickly.
So what do you have to do?
To keep your privileges active, you must complete a flight review with an authorized instructor every 24 calendar months.
And if I miss that window, I'm just grounded.
You cannot act as pilot in command until you go do a practice round with an instructor and prove you're still safe.
Man, and the rules get even tighter if you want to invite other people into your airplane, don't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
To legally carry passengers, you must have completed at least 3 takeoffs and 3 landings within the preceding 90 days.
Right.
And it has to be in the same category, class, and type of aircraft.
Wait, hold on. Category and class. So if I do my 3 practice landings in a tiny single-engine Cessna, I can't just legally turn around and load my friends into a multi-engine seaplane.
Definitely not. The FAA makes sure your practice actually matches the specific type of machine you're about to fly.
Okay, so what's the difference between category and class?
So category is broad, like airplane versus helicopter. Class is specific, like single-engine land versus multi-engine sea.
I mean, that makes sense. The muscle memory required to land a helicopter is completely different from an airplane.
Exactly. The FAA demands that your currency matches the exact vehicle you're operating.
Okay, so Part 61 is entirely focused on you, the human being. Like, are you trained? Are you qualified? Are your skills fresh?
Right. But once you prove you are, and your wheels actually leave the runway, you transition out of Part 61 and enter a completely different world.
The domain of Part 91, general operating and flight rules.
Yeah. If Part 61 is how you get your license, Part 91 is how you keep from crashing into everyone else or getting permanently banned from the sky.
It's the Discord admin rulebook of the sky, and the most important rule in that entire book, the one that establishes the absolute hierarchy of aviation, is 91.3.
Yes. Section 91.3 defines the pilot in command, or the PIC. It explicitly states that the pilot in command is directly responsible for and is the final authority as to the operation of that aircraft.
You are the Discord admin of your airplane. What you say goes. If a passenger is acting up, you make the call.
Right. If air traffic control gives you an instruction that you think will, say, fly you into a mountain, you are the final authority. You just say unable.
It is an incredible amount of power for a pilot to hold. But wait, if I'm the admin and the regulation literally says I am the final authority, who's to stop me from doing a barrel roll over my buddy's house at 500 feet? I'm the boss, right?
The FAA is way ahead of you on that one. The reality check is built right into the second paragraph of that very same rule.
Oh, of course it is.
You can only deviate from a regulation in an in-flight emergency requiring immediate action.
There it is, the catch.
Exactly. You cannot break the rules just because you hold the PIC title. An emergency means the aircraft engine just quit or the cabin is filling with smoke.
Or you've suffered a complete electrical failure at night.
Right. It's a catastrophic situation where following the normal rules would actively get you killed.
And even then, if you do use your admin powers to bust an altitude or break a speed limit to save the plane, doesn't the FAA make you do paperwork?
Oh, a ton of it. They can require you to submit a detailed written report explaining exactly why you deviated, absolute power comes with absolute responsibility.
So on a normal Tuesday, when nothing is on fire, the admin still has to follow the basic terms of service.
They absolutely do.
And that brings us to the actual day-to-day operations under Part 91, which starts long before you ever twist the ignition key. Let's talk about doing your homework. Pre-flight action.
Yes, the regulation dictates that before beginning a flight, the pilot in command shall become familiar with all available information concerning that flight.
And that doesn't mean just like looking out the window to see if it's sunny.
No, not at all. You have to check detailed aviation weather forecasts. You must precisely calculate your fuel burn.
And you have to know the physical runway lengths at the airports you plan to use, right? To ensure you can actually stop in time.
Exactly. Plus, you have to plan for alternate airports in case your destination suddenly gets socked in by thick fog while you're en route.
I know the FAA even published a whole guide about this, basically a guide to self-briefings. They know the modern sky is complex, so they actively encourage pilots to use iPads and aviation apps to run their checklists.
Yeah, they don't want you guessing. They want you anchoring your routine to a structured process. But, checking the weather and the aircraft is vital. But pilots often forget to check the most complex piece of machinery in the entire cockpit.
The human body. I mean, early in my flying career, I woke up with a bad head cold on the day of a flight, and I figured, I'll just pop an over-the-counter pill, power through it, and fly anyway.
Oh, that was a terrible idea.
This is an awful idea.
It's incredibly dangerous. And this is exactly why the aviation community uses the IMSAFE checklist. It's basically a physiological system check for the pilot.
Right. So the I is illness. Like a mild sinus cold on the ground might just be annoying, right? But as you climb to 8,000 feet, the atmospheric pressure drops.
And the trapped gas in your inflamed sinuses expands. You can suffer agonizing barotrauma or even rupture an eardrum, which would completely incapacitate you in the air.
Yeah, not fun. And then M is medication. So that antihistamine I wanted to take for the cold, it makes you drowsy.
Exactly. And at altitude, where your brain is already receiving slightly less oxygen anyway, the drowsy side effect of a basic allergy pill just multiplies.
Drowsiness quickly turns into full-blown cognitive impairment.
It does. Then S is stress, and E is emotion.
Right, like going through a bad breakup or being worried about your final exams.
Because flying an airplane requires immense cognitive bandwidth. If your brain is actively processing personal trauma or intense stress, you literally do not have the mental RAM left over to diagnose a complex engine failure.
That makes total sense. Then A is alcohol, which is obviously a massive non-negotiable no-go, and F is fatigue.
Right. If you only slept 3 hours last night, your brain cannot efficiently calculate fuel burn rates or crosswind landing components while traveling at 200 miles an hour.
So if you fail any letter on the IMSAFE checklist, the flight is just canceled, period.
Period. You stay on the ground.
Okay, so let's say you've done your IMSAFE check, your brain is sharp, your weather is briefed, and you're taxiing to the runway. But the moment those wheels leave the pavement, you are sharing the sky with thousands of other aircraft.
Thousands of them, yeah.
How do we prevent total chaos up there? Let's talk about literal speed limits in the sky. Like, are there cops with radar guns hiding behind the clouds?
Well, no cops in the clouds, but there are air traffic controllers with incredibly powerful radar systems. Under Part 91, aircraft are restricted to a maximum speed of 250 knots, which is about 287 miles per hour when flying below 10,000 feet mean sea level.
Okay, let's break that down. Mean sea level, or MSL, is our standardized way of measuring altitude so everyone is on the same page, right? Regardless of how tall the mountains below them are. But why 10,000 feet? Why is that the magic number for the speed limit?
Because below 10,000 feet is where all the traffic converges. That's where you find the student pilots in their little Cessnas, the news helicopters, the drones.
Massive flocks of birds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're descending in a heavy airliner at 400 knots and a student pilot is puttering along directly in front of you at 90 knots, your closure rate is terrifying.
You're just eating up that distance.
At hundreds of feet per second. The 250-knot limit ensures that human eyes actually have the physical time required to spot other traffic and take evasive action.
And it gets even slower, closer to the runway, right?
Yeah. When operating in the traffic pattern directly around an airport, the speed limit drops to 200 knots. You have to bleed off your airspeed so you can safely merge with the smaller, slower aircraft trying to land on the same strip of concrete.
Okay, so that's the speed outside. What about inside the cabin? Because in a car, we all intuitively know to buckle up.
It's the same in the sky, but, with a few specific aviation quirks. The pilot in command is legally required to ensure that all passengers are thoroughly briefed on how to fasten and unfasten their seatbelts and shoulder harnesses.
You cannot legally taxi the aircraft, take off, or land without confirming everyone is strapped in.
Though there is one wild exception in the source material that always surprises people.
Oh, the lap baby rule.
Yes, every person needs an approved seat and safety belt, except for the youngest passengers. A child who has not reached their second birthday can legally be held in the lap of an adult during the flight.
It's completely true. Now, obviously, safety experts highly recommend you buy them a seat and use an approved child restraint system because severe turbulence does not care how tightly you're holding your baby.
Absolutely. But strictly legally speaking, under Part 91, the lap exception exists for children under 2.
Okay, so we've checked the pilot's health, briefed the passengers, observed the speed limits. What about the physical health of the machine? Because you wouldn't drive a car with no brake pads.
Right, and aircraft require incredibly rigorous checkups. Under Part 91, every airplane must undergo an annual inspection every 12 calendar months.
Like a full physical.
A very deep physical. A certified aviation mechanic has to completely open up the plane, inspecting everything from the propeller spinner to the tail rudder to ensure it is legally airworthy.
And if the plane is being operated for hire, say, at a busy flight school, the rules get much tighter, don't they?
Yeah, then it requires a 100-hour inspection.
Why do flight school planes need to go to the shop every 100 flight hours? That seems so frequent.
Think about the life of a flight school Cessna. It's being flown by brand new students who are, frankly, slamming the landing gear onto the runway. Right. They're constantly throttling the engine up to maximum and back to idle, pulling hard G-forces as they learn maneuvers. The wear and tear is just exponential compared to a plane owned by a guy who flies gently to get a hamburger on Sundays.
So the scrutiny basically has to match the abuse.
Exactly. And the avionics need checkups too. That transponder we talked about, the device that broadcasts your exact altitude and position to the air traffic control radar,
Right.
that has to be recalibrated and certified every 24 calendar months.
And if you fly a plane that missed its annual inspection or has an expired transponder, you are directly violating the sky laws.
You're risking your pilot certificate under Part 61, but more importantly, you are risking your life in an unairworthy machine.
Wow. We have thrown a lot of concepts at you today. 40 hours, 250 hours, 250 knots, SAFE, MSL. But I want to bring this all back to you, the high school student sitting in that chair staring at the cockpit.
Yeah, because knowing Part 61 and Part 91 isn't just about memorizing flashcards so you can pass a multiple-choice test.
No, it's about earning the keys to the sky.
The sky offers an unbelievable amount of freedom, but it demands absolute respect. Gravity doesn't care if you're having a bad day. The weather doesn't care if you're in a hurry to get home.
Exactly.
The rules we've discussed today, the training requirements, the pre-flight briefings, the physiological checks, the speed limits they care, they're the accumulated wisdom of over a century of flight.
They're the framework that allows you to experience the magic of aviation without endangering yourself or, the people sleeping in their houses below you.
The rules give you the freedom.
But that freedom demands absolute accountability. And I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over on your own. It combines the two biggest concepts we talked about today.
Oh, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Think about it. We learned that under 91.3, the pilot in command is the ultimate admin of the airplane. You have the final, unquestionable authority to break any regulation in an in-flight emergency to save the plane.
Right. But we also learned that under 91.103, you are legally required to do your pre-flight homework on fuel, weather, and alternates before your wheels ever leave the ground.
So here is the scenario for you to ponder. Imagine a pilot who gets lazy and skips their pre-flight action. They don't check the radar, and they barely glance at the fuel gauges.
Which is a huge violation.
Exactly. And halfway through the flight, they run out of gas, their engine sputters into total silence, and they find themselves gliding directly toward a severe, violent thunderstorm.
So they are now in a terrifying life-or-death in-flight emergency.
Right. And to survive, the pilot uses their admin powers. They break air traffic control altitude rules, they shatter the speed limits, they do whatever it takes, and by some absolute miracle, they manage to glide the dead airplane to a safe landing in an empty farmer's field. Everyone lives.
Wow. So when the dust settles and the FAA arrives with their clipboards, how do they view this pilot? Are they a heroic aviator who used their ultimate authority to save their passengers' lives?
Or are they just a reckless, negligent amateur who caused a terrifying emergency themselves by breaking the most basic rule of pre-flight preparation.
Where does the line between ultimate authority and ultimate negligence truly lie?
Think about that the next time you look up at a plane cruising through the clouds. The sky is waiting for you, but it demands your respect before it grants you its freedom. Until next time, keep looking up.